Yep. Inside, I want to kill myself. We are on an 0-7 run over the last 2 days. After tonight was just complete bullshit. So that's how I'm going to start off this show. Horrible Sunday, 1-5. I don't even know what to tell you about that. I just don't want to do this anymore. I have never seen anything like this, man. With the slump continuing, 2 straight losses, not a good day at all. 0-4. I just have not had a good season, man. What kind of slump that I'm on? The slump continues. I've reached a new peak, actually. I'm going to burn my Bruins hat, man. I don't know what is going on with the Bruins. March 8th, is that what it is? I don't even know. It's March 9th, I think. Who even knows, man? I don't know what day it is anymore. I don't even know what day it is anymore, man. Back with you after the worst day that I could possibly have. Back with you, as I always am. Until I die, at least. 0-2 yesterday, and yesterday did not go well for me. 0-5. The worst month that I've ever had in my 18 years doing this. I don't know what to even tell you about this anymore. Broke the slump yesterday as the slump discontinues. The slump continues. Somebody fucking kill me, please. I don't even know what I should do at this point other than potentially end it all. What's up, everybody? It's Toad back with you for Toadstool Sports Wednesday, February 18th. 2-0 day on the show yesterday with both underdogs hitting. They both almost won outright. Virginia Tech, I guess, debatably should have or could have. I didn't see how that game ended. I know they lost by 1. It was a low-scoring game. I think they were in the game the whole time, leading at various points in the game. What can you do? I'll have to go back and see the highlights on that. I did see the end of the Arizona State game. They got the outright win. I know they were losing in the first half, but I don't think they were losing by a ton. That game was pretty low scoring as well. And at the end of the game, they almost threw the game away as far as like winning outright. And I was just like, don't let this game go into overtime, man, because you never know what's going to happen in overtime. And you have the lesser team in overtime, even if you have a ton of points. I'm not confident in that team at that point. Bobby Hurley's going to get fired, dude. That Arizona State team is so undisciplined. Like, I don't know if you saw the end of that game. After Losercast ended, I watched the end of that game. Arizona State was up 5 with like 40 seconds left. They should have just put the game away, and they couldn't handle the full court press or whatever. They turned the ball over. Texas Tech scored to cut it to 3. Then I think Arizona State turned it over again and committed a foul, but I think Texas Tech, missed one of the 2 free throws. So then it was a 3-point game. It was a 2-point game. But it's at a point where this whole time, Texas Tech has to intentionally foul if they don't steal the ball. I believe Arizona State did get fouled, but they did it in the most stupid way possible. Like, they actually took a shot. They were up 2, and they had run the clock down to 7 seconds left on the clock. And at that point, just keep passing it. Just try to run out the clock. Why would you shoot it? They took it was close to a layup, but it was still a defended layup, and they actually missed the shot. Like, what are you doing? You know Texas Tech has to intentionally foul you at this point. And if you hit both free throws, you're going to be winning by 4, and you're going to seal the game. I don't know what they were doing. They missed the layup, and they somehow luckily got the offensive rebound off of it and then got fouled. This team, it is just a horrible coaching job by Hurley. I don't know what's going on there. I know he's out there, talking smack about his players, pulling the UCLA, the Mick Cronin. Things are not working out with him either, by the way. 2 horrible losses for UCLA the last couple of games. But yeah, Arizona State then hit one of the 2 free throws, so then the game still wasn't over. They were up 3, but luckily Texas Tech then made a mistake, and they turned the ball over, and then that's what ended it. I'm like, oh my God. Man. Arizona State just tried to throw that game away at the end of it. But we did get there. We got the outright win with that one, so we'll move on to today. I got 2 plays today. Both underdogs, again, of a similar variety to what I have been doing recently. We'll get into it. We'll talk about these games. It's only college basketball today. It's a fairly big college basketball board today, although I am bored by some of the games here. The first game up is one of those. Rutgers at Penn State on the Big Ten Network, and they get the first time slot at 6 p.m. while there are not many other games on at that time. Don't know why. This is going to be a terrible game. These two teams are terrible. Rutgers did just beat Maryland to end a long losing streak. And I talk about sometimes when a team does get a win like that and end a long losing streak, it will give them momentum a lot of the time going into the next game. For Penn State, the travel spot is significantly worse for Penn State, I would have to say, because you got Rutgers just coming in here from New Jersey. Penn State is coming back from the Pacific Coast, where they were for the last two games. They did lose the second one to Oregon after pulling off the upset of Washington. I told you I liked Oregon in that one for multiple reasons. That was correct. And then Penn State does have Nebraska on deck. So there is the potential. They might overlook Rutgers, although I know if you're Penn State, you can't really overlook anybody, and Rutgers is ahead of them in the standings. But I think I would have to lean to Rutgers in this game just based on the spot. These two teams haven't played yet this year. This is the only time they play this year. Penn State is up to a 4.5-point favorite, but they have 73% of the tickets and only 64% of the cash. So even though Rutgers has the better conference record, the public is just not buying it. They're not on Rutgers here. The public is on Penn State for whatever reason, as bad as their record is. Usually the public is not going to be laying points with a team with a bad record like that. In this case, they are. I would lean to Rutgers based on the situation there. Kyle, what's up? Thanks for hanging out. Rutgers plus the points, that would be. All right. What other games are we going to talk about here, man? All right, let's go to the best bets. Why not? First best bet is one of the earlier games. Fox Sports 1, 6:30 p.m. We're going to take the points with Butler against Georgetown here. Nobody's going to want Butler the way that they've been playing recently. They've lost whatever this is, 6 games in a row. They've looked pretty atrocious in doing so, but they played okay in the last couple of games, if you really think about it. Losing by 10 to UConn, losing by 7 to Seton Hall, which, of course, was a non-cover from Butler. But I think when you're playing like this and you're Butler, I think you're going to try to at least show up and try to right the ship here, man, when there's not a whole lot left to play for. One of the games you might get up for is a game against a team that already beat you at home, and that would be who they're playing here, Georgetown. Georgetown beat Butler in Indianapolis by 13 earlier this year. So I think Butler might actually get up for this game, even though this involves them traveling to Washington, D.C. for this. Georgetown, I think, is in the significantly worse spot here because not only might they overlook a team they already beat on the road by double digits, but they're coming off 2 big games against Villanova and UConn, and they just played UConn to within 4 points as big underdogs here. UConn were 16.5-point underdogs. This game was at UConn. It was at Storrs, Connecticut. I think UConn's more crazy venue, Gampel Pavilion, and Georgetown basically went all out in this game, man. UConn did have the lead for most of the game, double-digit lead in the second half, but Georgetown never went away, and they just clawed their way back into the game, and they were only down 4 points with a few minutes left in the game, and they had actually cut the lead to 2, I believe. 2 points with 11 seconds left. So they pretty much took UConn almost right to the wire in that game, even though UConn wasn't really in danger of losing it. Georgetown went all out in that game, man, and now playing a team they already crushed on the road. I don't see them having a whole lot left here. Georgetown has Seton Hall up next, and Seton Hall beat Georgetown at Georgetown already earlier this year, and Seton Hall was in 4th place in the conference, so I think Georgetown has much more reason to focus on that game than a struggling Butler team that they already beat, so it lines up pretty nicely here. I like Butler in this one. This is one of my plays. The money seems like it agrees with me as well. Georgetown up to a 6-point favorite, like I said. Of course, StreamYard is not putting the timer on these things. What is it doing? Dude, oh my God. I hate StreamYard. All right, there it is. Butler plus 6. I want to keep that up while I talk about it. Keeping it up, man. We're keeping it hard the whole time. 70% of tickets, 66% of the cash on Georgetown, so they're a public side with less of the money on them. Total's not that high in the 140s. And if you look at what old Mr. Pomeroy has to say about these teams, Georgetown is 78th in his rankings, Butler 85th. So they're only separated by 7 ranking spots. And yeah, Georgetown's the more balanced team. All right, Butler has the better offense and the worst defense. I know I usually like to take points with the better defense, but in this case, it's about the spot. It's not like Georgetown is that much better defensively. Georgetown does like to play slow, so if that's what they're going to do, even though Butler wants to probably try to go a little bit faster than that, I think we're okay with it being a slower game because it might mean points are more at a premium here. Yeah, Georgetown is unlucky, but so is Butler. So the luck index for Ken Pom basically just is a wash between these two teams, but it's about the spot. Butler is the play in that one. Zach, what's up? Thanks for hanging out. All right. East Tennessee State and Furman is a pretty good game in the SoCon, even though this is a down conference this year. This is the first place team versus the fourth place team. East Tennessee already beat Furman only by 4 at home in overtime. So East Tennessee did not cover in that game. They were 5.5-point favorites. And when you were a home favorite and the other team took you to the limit like that, I think that does mean that you will take them seriously the next time. So East Tennessee might show up for that reason. And the fact that East Tennessee in their most recent game, they lost at home to Samford. East Tennessee were 7.5-point favorites, and they lost in overtime. I did watch some of the end of that game. Not a great performance from East Tennessee, so you could maybe even make the argument they might have been looking ahead to this too. And I think they had taken Chattanooga seriously the game before that in that in-state rivalry game where Chattanooga had almost beaten them the prior time they played, and that was a TV game. I think the Samford game might have been a TV game as well, but whatever the case, East Tennessee did play poorly in that game, so they might be in line for a bounce back. Although you do have to worry about the fact that they lost they lost a 4-game winning streak. Sometimes when a team loses a win streak, they will be hung over, although I think it's the longer that win streak was, the worse that it was, though. Or the worse that it is, I mean. But in this case, it was only a 4-game win streak. So I think there are more indicators that East Tennessee will show up here, but I think Furman will as well. They just broke a 3-game losing streak. They did lose to East Tennessee the first time. They're not going to overlook them or anything like that. They're back home where they had a horrible game the last time they were at home. Losing to UNC Greensboro, that was a win that I gave out on Super Bowl Sunday. Furman had played that game against East Tennessee the prior game, and they had Mercer on deck, which is a bigger game, so that was a sandwich spot. We got the win there, but when a team returns home and their last home game was something like that where they lose as a big favorite, I think they will have more focus the next time they're back at home. Furman coming off beating VMI, who's just a doormat in this conference. Not a big deal there, but it did end their losing momentum. So this is a very, very tough read. The money is kind of saying Furman right now with 67% of tickets, 99% of the cash on them. They're a 1-point favorite here. If you want Furman, money line would be the way I would probably recommend playing it. I could see arguments for both teams in this game, though, man. It's a very, very difficult handicap. East Tennessee is still the better team, though, and if you're going to get focus out of them, you know, there's the chance that they get the win there. This is not a game I want to get involved in. It might be a fun game to watch. The public, you would think, would kind of be leaning towards East Tennessee, though, because it's, pick the winner or even getting an underdog that has the better record. So there is kind of that component to it as well, where the line looks a little bit strange with the fact that Furman is the favorite, even though they have the worst record. But obviously, the odds makers have to give you home court advantage, and they're telling you East Tennessee is still the better team, but not by a significant margin, which is accurate. So that's what's going on in that game. Very, very difficult read in that one. TNT and HBO Max at 7 p.m. has Creighton at number 5, UConn. Creighton already lost to UConn horribly at home by almost 30 points, 85-58, losing in a palindrome. And that might mean that UConn won't take Creighton seriously this time, so there is that. So Creighton also might have a little bit extra motivation because you don't want to get embarrassed by anybody to that extent at home. Creighton's slipping right now. They're not playing well. They've lost 2 games in a row. I think they'll at least show up with an effort, and the question is going to be how much effort are you going to get out of UConn here. This is at Gamble for UConn, so it is at their crazier venue here. But you're going to be asking UConn to cover a huge number if you want them. UConn did just have kind of a bad game against Georgetown, where they only got by, like I showed you, they were 16.5-point favorites, I think, and they barely got by that game in the end. I think UConn kind of started packing it in early, though, because they had a double-digit lead late, and it slipped because I think they just stopped putting effort in. But still, you come off a scare like that, you might be focused in the next game. But UConn does have two big games on deck between against Villanova and then St. John's, who's the only team that's beaten UConn in the Big East play this season. So those are the other two teams that are going to make the tournament as well. And Villanova gave them a decent game at UConn. So I think it is still more likely that UConn's going to kind of overlook this game. So I would lean towards Creighton plus the points in this one. Not a strong opinion, though, because there are definitely some arguments to be made for UConn kind of showing up here. But with UConn, you're going to get a slower pace game. You're going to get a low total, which it is, in the 140s. UConn's a public side, 76% of the tickets and cash. It looks like they're teetering on being a 17-point favorite here. Mostly 16.5s probably still. But slight lean for me towards taking the points there. But yeah, not a game that I want anything to do with, really. ESPN at 7 p.m. has possibly the craziest game that we have tonight. Number 20, Arkansas at number 25, Alabama. And the main reason why this is so crazy is look at the total. It's up to 183.5. Some of the money looks like it is coming back and taking the under. 80% of tickets on the under and 88% of the cash on the under. The public, because the public likes to play overs, especially when you got two offensive juggernauts like Arkansas and Alabama, and teams that are not good defensively, which is Arkansas and Alabama. They don't play that much defense. They both play really fast, and they both have way better offenses than defenses. So obviously, to me, this does have the makings of a very high-scoring game. The public tends to shy away from the overs, when the total is this high. I would still probably go over in this one. I know it seems crazy because it's like you basically need one of the teams to get to 100 if the game's going to go over. But this is the style of game where it could happen, man. So I think the way that I would probably look at this game would actually be over. There's a reason why the total is massively high the way that it is. Well, it's gone up a little bit. As far as the side in this game, Arkansas is on a 3-game win streak. They did just beat Auburn. That was a decent win. It was a revenge win for an ugly loss earlier in the season. I don't think they're going to overlook Alabama here, but I don't think Alabama is going to overlook this game either. It is in Tuscaloosa. The public might look at this, though, and think, well, Alabama laying 4.5 looks a little bit strange. The public might want to grab the points with the higher-ranked team because that's kind of what they do when they see these, what looks like a competitive matchup, which I think it will be. Although there's more variance in a high total game, you could wind up seeing one team getting margin in this one. But the public, I think, will look at this and think it makes sense to take the points off because you have two ranked teams like this. It should be a close game, and you're getting points with the team with the better record and better ranking. The odds makers are telling you there's not that much of a difference between these two teams, though. Alabama laying 4.5 here, although Ken Pom actually does have Arkansas slightly above Alabama, I believe. Let me see. Yeah, by 2 ranking spots, so very, very close. But again, we have two teams that are in the top 25 in tempo. They're both outside the top 40 in defense, and they're both inside the top 6 in offense. So like I said, I think the over is what makes the most sense here. But as far as the side is concerned, I kind of lean Alabama here. And if you look at Alabama's schedule here, they're coming off an easier win over South Carolina. That was not a very impressive performance from them. So, yeah, they will have to step up in class for this. But Arkansas is coming off the more satisfying win. So I would slightly lean towards Alabama in that one. They're a 4-point favorite, but money looks like it is coming in on Arkansas, at least for now. But they might be a public side, too. 62% of the tickets, 71% of the cash on them for now. But slight lean towards Alabama for me in that one. All right. see if there are other games that I want to talk about here. There were some games in here that I had like some opinion on. Let me see. I think Bradley versus Valpo. I kind of had an opinion on this. Yeah, because Bradley is kind of sandwiched in here between two Illinois teams, and why that matters is because Bradley is also an Illinois school, so they have in-state rivalry games surrounding this game against Valpo. They already beat Valpo by 7 at home, which, not exactly an impressive win, but it might be enough that they just won't pay that much attention to Valpo here. It's a second straight road game, third road game in 4 games. Bradley's last 2 games, they had a huge win against Belmont, and then they didn't suffer a letdown after beating the best team in the Missouri Valley. They won again against Southern Illinois. So that was a nice win for them against a team that had already beaten one, so they didn't beat them by that much at home. But they were able to beat their little brother. I would say it's Southern Illinois is their little brother at this point, just because Bradley's been the better team recently. But that was a satisfying win, I think. Now they play a Valpo team they already beat. And who do they have up next? Oh, yeah, they have 2 more Illinois schools. Illinois State being next, who is a team that beat them by 26 points already at Illinois State, and Illinois State is still one of the better teams in the conference. And then they have another Illinois school after that, Illinois Chicago, who also beat them by double digits. So they have 2 revenge in-state rivalry games coming up after this. And then Murray State, who's one of the top teams in the conference to finish the season. So this is like clearly the down spot left in Bradley's schedule here. So I would lean to Valpo in this one. Valpo, coming off a win by 1 over Indiana State. Yeah, I know it was an Indiana rivalry game, whatever. Indiana State's not a good team this year. So I don't think Valpo is going to be like overconfident after that. Valparaiso, they've been sneakily an okay team this year. The public's probably going to come in on Bradley if they play this game. They're a 1.5-point favorite. 67% of tickets, 88% of the cash on Bradley. Of course, you got to give Valpo home court advantage. Of course, we know Bradley's the better team, but when you have a line that's like pick the winner like this, it looks so easy to play Bradley, the team with the better record, but that's not what I would do. I would lean to Valpo in that one. There is the chance that Bradley kind of gets caught in that one. All right. Trying to just pick the games that are like, games that have some interest in them, either interesting games or games that are interesting from a handicapping perspective. Although if you want me to talk about some of the other games, I can. Let's see here. CBS Sports at 7 p.m. Dayton at George Mason in the Atlantic 10. This is an interesting game, man. It's an interesting line, too, because, of course, we know George Mason still has this really good-looking record, even though they've lost 3 of their last 4 games. But they're only laying 2.5 here, or 2. So it's basically pick the winner. It looks like really, really easy to play George Mason in this game, which is sort of an indicator that that's not what you should be doing based on the line there. It looks pretty much too easy to play George Mason. Dayton is not the odds makers are telling you Dayton's actually the better team over George Mason, which I'm not sure I would quite go that far, but maybe. Let me see. Where does Ken Palm have these guys? He's got Mason 97th. He does have Dayton as the better team, 92nd. It's not a game I'm interested in playing, but he does have George Mason 27th in luck. So even though Dayton's a fairly lucky team as well, he's got George Mason as one of the most lucky, a.k.a. overperforming teams this season. Dayton had been on a bad stretch, but they have won 2 of their last 3 now, with their only loss being against VCU, which is not a horrible loss on the road. And they lost to St. Louis, the loss prior to that. Obviously, you can accept that loss as well. We know how good St. Louis is, although they lost to Rhode Island last night. That was kind of a crazy ending in that game. I had the ending of that game on. I told you I liked Rhode Island to cover that, but that was pretty wild. But Dayton is coming off beating Davidson. I don't think it's going to win. I don't think it's a win that's going to make them overconfident. I think they will show up for a TV game against George Mason, although George Mason might be excited to get a TV game as well. And the spot for them is not that bad, as they just got smoked by George Washington in their last game. So I think they might actually show up with some focus here in this one. So based on what these teams did in the last game, George Mason, doesn't look like that bad of a side to me based on the fact they lost horribly in their last game. But the numbers guys are going to come in on Dayton in this one because you wouldn't think that Dayton's a better team based on the records, but they actually are. Mason is a 2-point favorite here, 70% of tickets on them, 68% of the cash coming back on Dayton. So the market read does say Dayton here. I guess I won't disagree with it really, but the situation I think is a little bit more favorable for George Mason in that game. But from a numbers perspective and from what the line looks like, I would agree with the Dayton side. So it's a game that I just can't do anything with, for me. But those are my thoughts on it. It's a tough game to call. Total is pretty low in that one as well. Next up is my other play of the day here. Wichita State and East Carolina. We're getting real ugly, man. This is my only other play. We're going to take the underdog in this one, too. East Carolina plus 7.5 in this one. I don't know if you can get a better number than this. You might be able to get 8 on this now. We don't really see any percentages that help us on this yet. It's a pretty low total in the 140s. Wichita likes to play slow. So if we look at what Ken Baum's got going on here, I know he has Wichita as a very unlucky team. I've been saying that Wichita is pretty under the radar, too. But I don't like the spot for Wichita here at all. Even though, yes, they are clearly the better team here. But they're more of a defensive team. They're in the top 70 on defense, according to Ken Bum, but outside the top 100 on offense. So a defensive team that slows it down and laying points on the road, I am fine with fading a team like that because it's going to be a bit of a stretch to ask them to cover a big number like this on the road when they're that style of team. And for East Carolina, yeah, I know they suck. They're outside of the top 200, according to Ken Baum. They're not a lucky team, though. He has them still in, like, the bottom third of his luck index, so I'm fine with that, too. They might try to speed the game up a little bit, but even if they aren't successful in doing that and throwing Wichita out of their rhythm, I think still they might be able to hang around in this game based on the spot, which I'll show you in a second, and based on the style that Wichita plays that I just talked about. East Carolina is also significantly better on defense than offense, so their defense might be able to keep them around in this game, even though they're not in the top 200 in either, but they're 70 ranking spots higher in defense than offense. So they're better on defense than they are on offense. Wichita, they're coming off 2 monster games, dude. They played South Florida, who's at the top of the American Conference now, played them to within 8, and then they turned around and they beat Tulsa to kind of knock Tulsa down. Tulsa now in second place, even though Tulsa is still one of the best teams in this conference, man. So Wichita just played the 2 teams that are above them. They got the revenge upset against Tulsa. And then on deck, they got Temple and then Memphis. And Temple is right behind them in the standings by a half game. And actually, Memphis is too. And, Memphis has that huge name behind them. So I think this is a spot where they might overlook an East Carolina team. It's way down, dwelling near the bottom of the standings here. And Wichita already beat East Carolina by 17 points at home. So I think it's going to be pretty easy to look past them in what I think is a sandwich spot. And at the very least, a big-time letdown spot for Wichita. So we're going to be on East Carolina in this one. As far as East Carolina is concerned, they're on a little 2-game win streak here that won't make them overconfident, but it will give them confidence and momentum coming into this. They only beat UTSA and Rice, which is not a big deal. Playing at home here. A team like Wichita having to go over to the Carolinas. I know they're in the Americas, so they do have to go to the East Coast quite often, but still, I think it's still a little bit of a weird venue for Wichita to have to go to, too. So East Carolina will be our play. It looks like the money, the percentages are starting to come in now here. We see 67% of tickets on Wichita, 98% of the cash on East Carolina for now. So, the money might wind up agreeing with me on that, but those are my only 2 plays of the day. Those 2 underdogs there. I'm completely losing my voice here, man. I don't know what else to do here. How many games do I have left to talk about? What are we? We're like close to halfway through, not quite. All right. What else we got going on here? I almost feel like I need another break here, man. This is like, my voice is just killing me. ESPNU, 7 p.m., UAB at Temple. UAB, I've been, on a couple of UAB games in a row. I think I gave them out when they upset Tulsa, I think. I don't remember, though. But then I definitely did fade them the other day when they lost to Tulane. I think I had both of those games as winners here on the show. So now UAB is coming off an ugly loss. So they had pulled off a big upset win at Tulsa. They were in a letdown spot after that. They got caught. They didn't play well against Tulane. They lost as a favorite. They only scored in the 50s. Bad game, even though they still almost won the game. Now they're going to Temple, so you might get a resurgence from UAB here. They might play better against one of the teams that's near the top of the standings. And the odds makers are actually going to be telling you here that Temple's not as good as their record looks. But Temple is coming off a pretty bad loss, too, at home to North Texas, who has not been good this year. Temple was definitely a favorite in that game. So you actually have two teams coming off losses as home favorites. So I think that kind of balances out, and then it kind of becomes, well, which team is actually better here if you're going to get both teams in a focused spot. And the odds makers are telling you that's UAB. Temple dropped from -1.5 to a pick 'em here. So the odds makers are telling you to not buy Temple's slightly better-looking record here, that UAB is actually the better team here. Ken Bum has UAB 129th, which isn't bad. Temple 161st, so he is actually agreeing with that, with his analytics. He does have UAB as the better team as well. The money's starting to come in on Temple a little bit. 50-50 on the tickets, 91% of the cash on Temple. I kind of lean towards UAB in that one, but not really a strong opinion. That is a TV game on ESPNU. So sometimes the home team does get a little bit of a boost with a primetime home game, but I think on a very crowded Wednesday board, I think it means less. It means more when it's like a Friday game, when it's more isolated and you know you're going to have more people watching it. On a Wednesday like this, when there are a ton of games going on, I think it means a little bit less that you get a TV game. ACC Network at 7 p.m. has Clemson at Wake Forest. Clemson has fallen out of the rankings. They've lost 2 games in a row, but I think one of them, they were looking ahead to Duke, which is why they lost to Virginia Tech. Although Virginia Tech's been reasonably competitive, as we saw last night. Clemson then took a pretty ugly loss to Duke, where they were not really in that game in the second half of it, whatever. But it's Duke. We know Duke is elite. But now Clemson's having to play a 4th road game in 5 games, which is not that easy. And the first 2 were on the Pacific Coast. Although at least for them here, they're playing 2 straight games in North Carolina. Now they only have Florida State on deck, which is not a big deal. Maybe they'll be in bounce-back mode here, and they do step down in class to face Wake Forest here. I think Wake will get up for this game too, though. And Wake is coming off 2 wins in a row. They did just beat Stanford in their last game. Wake was actually favored in that game, though, believe it or not. And I leaned to Wake in that game. Stanford, they're just not what their record makes them look like. So I wouldn't say that was a huge win for Wake, although it was a decent win. But Clemson, I don't know, man. I mean, Clemson's going to be a public side here. They're up to a 3.5-point favorite. It does look way too easy to lay the points with the team with the way better record like Clemson here. 85% of the tickets on them and only 65% of the cash. It is a low total in the 130s, and I do think Wake is a little bit underrated right now, as the odds makers are kind of telling you that Wake is not horrible here. Low total kind of makes sense to take points with the home dog here. I could see Clemson bouncing back, but then again, they are coming off a pretty big game where they just didn't play that well. I don't know. It was a game they at least got up for emotionally. I might default to the market read in that one and lean towards Wake, but I don't have a strong opinion on that one, really. Lehigh at Navy. The reason I'll talk about this is because Navy just beat Colgate, which I think was overtime as well. That was a huge game for Navy because that pretty much solidified Navy atop the Patriot League. They do play Colgate one more time, but Colgate pretty much can't catch them now. So I don't even know if it's mathematically possible, actually. I guess it is with 4 games left, but it's not going to happen unless Navy loses every remaining game and Colgate wins out, including beating Navy, and then I think Colgate would maybe be able to overtake them, but aside from that, it's not going to happen. So you could essentially say Navy has sealed the 1 seed in the Patriot League pretty much and could be in a letdown spot coming off that huge win. They do have Army on deck, and we know Army is a rival of theirs. It's just that I don't know how big of a look ahead that is when they already beat Army by almost 30 points, and Army is just way, way down. They're just not good at all. These service academies just aren't really that good typically in basketball, so seeing Navy doing this, even though I think they're a bit of a lucky team. At least Ken Baum tells you they are. Usually don't see Navy playing this well. The last time Navy made the tournament was 1998. So I think this is a pretty big deal for this Navy program. Could be in a letdown spot here. They're playing a Lehigh team they did already beat on the road by 3. I would have to lean towards Lehigh in this one. Lehigh is starting to play a little bit better in conference play here. They've won a couple more games in a row here. They did just beat one of their kind of rivals in Lafayette because I think both of those teams are in Pennsylvania, not that far off from each other. But I don't really see them overlooking Navy, but it is 4 road games in 5 games for them, which is not that easy. But I do think it's a huge letdown spot for Navy, where they just might not have a full effort here. I would probably take the points with Lehigh. Navy's a 10-point favorite here. Might be a lot to lay in a spot like this, especially with a team that's more defensive, I believe, like Navy is. The total's pretty low in the 130s. 80% of the tickets, 90% of the cash on Navy. I would disagree with that cash percentage. I think I would only lean towards taking the points with Lehigh in that one. All right. UNC Greensboro and Western Carolina is just interesting because people are going to look at this and see Western Carolina has the worst record, and yet they're laying 5.5 points. And I think the public, if they look at this game, they're going to want to grab UNC Greensboro. Oh, I'm getting the team with the better record getting points. Yeah, but you're getting points for a reason. The odds makers are telling you that UNC Greensboro is not the better team here. Ken Baum has them barely inside the top 300. They're bad. They're really bad on defense. In the bottom, 15 in defense, and they're a pretty lucky team, whereas Western Carolina has been beating some of the better teams in this conference. They're much less lucky, according to Ken Baum, though they are also really bad on defense. Both teams are terrible on defense. So this might also kind of be a sneaky overplay, by the way, because both teams are so bad on defense. The total in the 150s, it has dropped a little bit, though. But looking at the side here, I think it looks way too easy to take the points. UNC Greensboro is coming up beating Wofford. Wofford, one of the better teams in this conference. That was a good win for UNC Greensboro, and it was revenge because they lost by double digits at Wofford earlier this year. And they have top team in the conference, East Tennessee State, on deck, which is also revenge for a 26-point loss earlier this season. And they already beat Western Carolina, although it was only a 3-point win at home. So I know sometimes when it's a small win like that, that's not going to cause you to overlook that team. But I think they are still in a sandwich, man, between two of the top teams in the conference, Wofford and East Tennessee, playing a team they already beat once. I would have to lean to Western Carolina in this one. Western Carolina coming off an easier win over Chattanooga. Not really as big a deal there. Coming back home, they did have a blowout win the last time they were at home, though, against the Citadel, but whatever. I would lean Western Carolina there. They're up from 4.5 to 5 here, but 50% of tickets, 97% of the cash on UNC Greensboro. So the money looks like it's coming in on UNC Greensboro. I don't know about that. I would disagree with that in that one. All right. What else do we have going on here? I don't remember if I was going to talk about the James Madison game at Coastal. Well, they did just beat App State, so they're coming up. They could be in a letdown spot maybe because App State is at the top of the conference. So that's what I would say about James Madison here. They have not played Coastal yet. They play them again at the very end of the season. Coastal, I don't think is as good as their record looks. Coastal Carolina, that is. But Coastal is coming off barely getting by Louisiana Lafayette there, and you can tell why. Because Coastal Carolina had that huge comeback, a triple overtime win over UMass, and a big game against Arkansas State where they played pretty close the game before that. So I think they were hung over or in a letdown spot, whatever you want to call it, going into that game against Louisiana. So they had a bad game against a bad team. I kind of expect them to bounce back and get a James Madison team that could be somewhat in letdown mode here. So I would lean to Coastal Carolina in this one, although they dropped from a 1-point favorite to a pick 'em. And I guess the one concern about this is, even though the situation, it's one of these games where the situation says one thing, situation says Coastal, but the fact that Coastal has the better record makes it look way too easy to play Coastal. You know what I mean? So it's one of those conflicting things where I do think the situation does matter, though, depending on how strong it is. I mean, it always matters, but it depends how strong it is. Like I said, man, a lot of the professional guys seem to like UMass last night. You remember, I told you I did not. Even though I think Miami, Ohio was totally overrated, but just the spot set up nicely for Miami, Ohio in that game for a bunch of reasons. You can see my analysis on that, but I was correct on that game. But in this one, even though, it looks way too easy to play Coastal, basically just pick the winner. You're going to take the team with the better record. But in that game, I'm not so sure that it's the wrong side based on how the situation sets up. So it's kind of an interesting game. SEC Network at 7 p.m. Ole Miss is at Texas A&M. Ole Miss just had a rivalry game, but they took a pretty ugly revenge loss against Mississippi State. So both road teams won the Egg Bowl matchups this year, whatever you want to call them, the Mississippi rivalry there. The road team got both games. That time it was Mississippi State winning at Ole Miss. Ole Miss is on a horrible stretch right now, 6 losses in a row. Coming into this game against Texas A&M, they'll probably show up. Texas A&M is really plummeted, though. They've lost 4 games in a row, but their losses are more excusable. Losing to Alabama on the road by 3, Florida, and then Vandy on the road. Those are very excusable losses, and they did lose to Missouri, but it was kind of a sandwich spot in the middle there. So I'm not ready to say that Texas A&M is as bad as they look right now. I don't think they're as good as what they looked like earlier in the season, but now I don't think they're as bad as they currently are. So now we might be starting to get some value back on the Texas A&M side here. They are definitely the better team in this matchup. And I think both teams will show up here. But the money is coming in on Ole Miss for what it's worth. A&M's down from 9.5 to 8.5. I guess maybe it's a bit to lay here. I mean, Ole Miss just isn't really good at anything this year, man. That's the thing. Texas A&M is actually not a horrible team, even though they're not as good as what they looked like I said earlier this year. 57% of tickets on A&M, 81% of the cash on Ole Miss. The only thing I could really say is that Ole Miss might be able to slow the game down a bit because that's what they're going to try to do here. A&M's going to try to speed it up. They play fast. Ole Miss tries to slow it way down, but I don't even think Ole Miss is the better defensive team here, man. I think A&M is better on both sides of the ball, so I don't know, man. The question is really, is the number too high? Because I do pretty much expect A&M to win this game. I expect the better team to get the job done when both teams are going to be in a focus spot. But will they be able to cover a number like that? I don't know. The money is saying no, so take from that what you want, I guess. The money is saying take the points with Ole Miss, but it's a game I'm definitely skipping. 7 p.m. ESPN2, Oklahoma at Tennessee. Oklahoma coming off beating Vandy on the road in a crazy upset, and then that might have given them some new life, some new momentum, because it ended a long losing streak for them. They did not fall into a letdown spot, and they got a blowout win over Georgia. Georgia had a nice, huge bounce back last night, winning at Kentucky, by the way. Crazy how these games zigzag all over the place. I think I did lean to Georgia plus the points last night. But Oklahoma coming off a nice couple of wins there. I don't think they're going to overlook Tennessee, though. As far as Tennessee is concerned, I think Tennessee is better than they look, though. And Tennessee is staying at home off an easy win against LSU. But Tennessee does have Vandy up next, and Tennessee might be playing with a chip on their shoulder right now because that's a Tennessee rivalry, and Tennessee is always the bigger brother, but now they're ranked lower than Vandy. So they might be playing with a chip on their shoulder. There is a potential look ahead for Tennessee to that game. Ken Bum does have Vandy 7 ranking spots higher, but he does have Tennessee ranked 19th in the country. So Tennessee is getting a bit shortchanged by the rankings makers, and it's because they play an ugly style, man. They're better on defense than offense. They play slow. That's what they do. This game is really difficult to call as well from a side perspective. Tennessee is a 10-point favorite, down from 11, and the money looks like it's fading them here. 86% of tickets, only 67% of the cash on Tennessee. I won't really disagree with taking the points. I mean, you're fading a team that, again, plays kind of slow, plays defense. So fading them when they're a big favorite, I think is usually kind of the way that you want to look. But I kind of worry because Tennessee's coming off an easy game. Oklahoma's coming off a better win, a more satisfying win, let's say. Although, then again, I don't think Oklahoma's going to overlook Tennessee. There is the worry here, that Tennessee's going to start looking ahead to Vandy, so That would be the worry. So I'm not really going to disagree with Oklahoma in that one. All right. We got, what else do we have going on here? West Georgia and Eastern Kentucky. I think I had some sort of opinion on this in the A-Sun. Yeah, Eastern Kentucky's coming off an ugly loss at North Alabama, who's right at the bottom of the conference standings. Eastern Kentucky was coming off a game where they lost to Lipscomb, who's one of the better teams in the conference, the game before that. So there is a potential bounce back here after a bad loss to North Alabama. Now that they're back at home, they're playing a West Georgia team that actually beat them by 12 at West Georgia, and West Georgia is not the better team. So Eastern Kentucky being the better team in revenge mode and in bounce back mode here, coming off an ugly loss, I think there are a lot of things that say that they should show up in this game. For West Georgia, maybe not so much. They're playing a third straight road game. They just lost to Central Arkansas, who's right near the top of the standings here and having a good season, man. Even though they did lose by 17, so it wasn't a close game. But they do also have Queens and then Lipscomb on deck, and those are two big games for West Georgia, man. Two of the other top teams in the conference standings, and again, playing a team they already beat once. I would have to lean toward Eastern Kentucky in this one. They're a 5.5-point favorite here with juice. Don't really see the percentages yet. So the odds makers are telling you Eastern Kentucky is the better team, but people might look at this and see Eastern Kentucky has this awful-looking record. Like, why would you want to lay points with a team with a record like that against a team that has a better record? Like, the public is not going to want to do that at all. It looks like such a weird line. Like, it looks way off. Like, it looks like such a fishy line. But again, the odds makers are telling you Eastern Kentucky is actually the better team there. Eastern Kentucky, Ken Baum has them pretty unlucky in the bottom 60-something in luck. They're not good on defense, though, so that's one concern with them. But West Georgia is also really, they're bad on both sides of the ball. So Eastern Kentucky gives you the way better offense. Both defenses are bad. And West Georgia is 19th in luck, according to Ken Baum. So there is a big luck disparity there. So I would lean towards Eastern Kentucky there, towards the Colonels in that one. And eat some KFC, I guess, while you watch that one. Jacksonville at Florida Gulf Coast in the same conference. Jacksonville, I don't know. Wait, was there a reason why I wanted to talk about this? I don't know. Jacksonville did just end a 4-game losing streak. They beat North Florida. Not a big deal there. They did already lose badly at home to Florida Gulf Coast by 19 points, and they only put up 49. So they are potentially in revenge mode here. And they just ended a losing streak, so they ended their losing momentum with probably an unsatisfying win against North Florida. So you're going to get Jacksonville in revenge mode with new momentum here. Even though they got Austin Peay on deck, who are atop this conference right now, I don't know that they're going to overlook Gulf Coast because they got so embarrassed by Gulf Coast in the last game. But then again, Gulf Coast is coming off a bad performance against Stetson, where they barely won. You know, I talk about when a team's a huge favorite and they almost lose the game. I think Stetson might get up for games against Florida Gulf Coast because they probably consider themselves to be the little brother. Stetson, also a Florida team. Florida Gulf Coast barely got by as a huge favorite there, so they might still show up as well. But they do have Central Arkansas on deck, man. And it's probably going to be easy for them to overlook Jacksonville, a team that they already embarrassed once. So I would take the points with Jacksonville in that one. Florida Gulf Coast, 6.5-point favorite there. Looks like they're creeping up a little bit on the number there. The total's low in the 130s. So those are my thoughts on that one. What else do we have going on here? Don't know if I want to talk about any of these other games here. Western Kentucky at Delaware, I think, was a bit of an interesting handicap. Western Kentucky just beat Middle Tennessee, and I think Middle Tennessee is still not as bad as their record looks, but Western Kentucky had to have been a home favorite in that one, and they just barely got by, but that was still a decent win. Now they're playing a Delaware team that is playing better recently, but they're still near the bottom of the conference. And up next, Western Kentucky has Liberty, man. That's a huge game. Liberty already beat them once at Western Kentucky. Liberty is of course, still atop the Conference USA and undefeated in conference play, even though I still don't think Liberty's as good as they look. This is just a weak conference, but Western Kentucky might be looking ahead to that game. Delaware is coming off a better win. They just pulled off 2 straight road upsets after they themselves beat Middle Tennessee. They beat FIU, Florida International. and Missouri State on the road. So they could be in a letdown mode coming off those two big upset wins. Very, very difficult game to call, man, because it is a look-ahead spot for Western Kentucky as well. The money is saying Delaware here. Western Kentucky down from 4 to 3.5 here. They're public. 80% of the tickets, only 73% of the cash. Of course, the public is going to look at Western Kentucky here. It looks pretty easy to lay 3.5 with a team with a significantly better record. The market read is saying Delaware. I guess I won't disagree with it, but I don't want to play Delaware when they're coming off 2 road upsets in a row, man. It's just that I think that is kind of a major look ahead there for Western Kentucky. So I guess those are my thoughts on that. All right. What other games do we want to talk about here, man? I'm going to go take a break real quick. I'll be right back. I'll talk about the rest of the games. I don't have any more plays, though, so I know it's not a whole lot to wait for here. Yep. Inside, I want to kill myself. We are on an 0-7 run over the last 2 days. After tonight was just complete bullshit. So that's how I'm going to start off this show. Horrible Sunday, 1-5. I don't even know what to tell you about that. I just don't want to do this anymore. I have never seen anything like this, man. With the slump continuing, 2 straight losses, not a good day at all. 0-4. I just have not had a good season, man. What can this slump that I'm on? The slump continues. I've reached a new peak, actually. With I'm gonna burn my Bruins hat, man. I don't know what is going on with the Bruins. March 8th, is that what it is? I don't even know. It's March 9th, I think. Who even knows, man? I don't know what day it is anymore. I don't even know what day it is anymore, man. Back with you after the worst day that I could possibly have. Back with you, as I always am. Until I die, at least. 0-2 yesterday, and yesterday did not go well for me. 0-5. The worst month that I've ever had in my 18 years doing this. I don't know what to even tell you about this anymore. Broke the slump yesterday as the slump discontinues. The slump continues. Somebody fucking kill me, please. I don't even know what I should do at this point other than potentially end it all. All right, yes, back to finish talking about this crap here. Dirty Sock, what's up? Yes, thanks for hanging out. Yes, good day, good night. I was correct with vast majority of my opinions yesterday. I would say I should just play every game on the board. I don't know if I would have picked out South Carolina as my next strongest lean out of all of those, though. But they did cover, yes. That one, yeah, I don't know. That was not one of my stronger opinions. What else was I going to say? Yesterday, by the way, there was all this talk about, like a lot of the professional bettors, like the ones that have social media presence, whatever. I follow a bunch of them. They're all talking about these plays are all square, sharp plays. I'm like, what the fuck does that even mean? Oh, it's so sharp that it becomes square because all the professional bettors are on them. I'm like, no. And that applied to those 3 games that had the weird lines yesterday, and they all won. NC State, Ohio State, and Iowa. And I liked the last 2 of those. I didn't love NC State just because I thought the number was actually too high in that one, although they won an absolute blowout. Sorry to Garrett. But, yeah, square sharp doesn't mean anything, dude. It's like you're outsmarting yourself. You're trying to be smarter than you're basically you're twisting yourself in knots and putting yourself on the wrong side. It's just a ridiculous way to think. To me, sharp means that you're getting ahead of the line move. That's what it means to me. You get a better number than where it closes. That's all it means. You're getting the better number. Then I think just based on the percentages that I look at, the ticket percentages versus the cash percentages, you could tell where are the recreational bettors, the squares, and where are the professional bettors, or pros versus Joes, basically. And I think where the higher cash percentages, that's where the professionals are. But these people are basically saying, well, it gets to a point where the books need that game to go the other way because there are too many professionals on that side. I'm like, no, like if all the professionals are on that side, that's for a reason. Like they have their handicapping techniques that have worked for years and years. So I'd much rather be on that side, even if the books are going to lose money on that particular game. If you have a bunch of professionals saying one thing and public bettors saying the other thing, no, I'm not going to side with the fucking public. Like, what are you talking about? Which one of those sides is more square? So I don't understand that line of thinking at all. Even though, yeah, I stayed off of all of those games in question yesterday because I just didn't love the situations necessarily, though I thought the situation was still better for Ohio State and Iowa in those two games. So, yeah, I don't know. It was some really weird conversations going on there. And then, I don't know, like I said, some of the professionals were on UMass yesterday, and I was warning people against that play based on the situation because you had Miami, Ohio had barely gotten by them at home as a huge favorite. And I tell you, then when that happens in the first meeting, they'll more often than not take that team seriously the next time. And UMass was coming off a triple overtime game 9 days prior and then played Akron really tight in the next game. So the spot was way worse for UMass. Again, you got to take into account everything, man. You can't just blindly say, oh, well, the numbers saying this, like, you know, it looks way too easy to play this team. Well, no, you got to factor in everything. I mean, that's what I try to do. But, you know, I mean, obviously I'm not going to win every single time either. But, you know, yesterday I felt like I was right on many, many things. All right. Let's see here. What other games we want to discuss here? Middle Tennessee and Sam Houston is actually an interesting one in the Conference USA. These two teams are both decent, despite what Middle Tennessee's record looks like. I've been saying Sam Houston is an underrated team, but they're starting to become less underrated because people are starting to see that they're actually solid. Middle Tennessee playing a fourth straight road game, which is not exactly what you want. Coming off a game against Western Kentucky where they played really close against a decent Western Kentucky team as a road underdog there. Middle Tennessee already beat Sam Houston at home by 1. But I don't think they're going to overlook Sam Houston. It's just a matter of the fact they're playing a bunch of road games in a row. Does make it kind of difficult. Sam Houston just beat Kennesaw on the road, and they're coming back home off of that. Last time they were at home, they didn't play that well against UTEP, barely getting by. So I kind of think the spot is a little bit better for Sam Houston in this one. The market read on this is actually difficult because Sam Houston dropped from 6 to 5, but 86% of the tickets, 98% of the cash on them. Difficult read, man. I think Sam Houston, the spot does set up a little bit better for them. I guess I would have a slight lean in that direction, but it's nothing really crazy there. Again, if you want me to talk about some of these other games, I can. Florida Atlantic at UTSA. Actually, I skipped over another game I was going to talk about, but I'll still do it. This is at 8 p.m. These games are not TV games, but this game is interesting because Florida Atlantic is coming off a huge game against South Florida where the refs kind of screwed them on a flop on a three-point attempt. I was watching the end of that game. The game went into overtime as well, I'm pretty sure. That was a huge game for both teams, but FAU is not having that good of a season, even though I actually think they're more competitive than their record looks. But that was a big game against the top team in the conference, falling just short in overtime. I think that could definitely hang them over into the next game. And they're playing a Texas San Antonio team they already beat by 40 at home and put up 110 points against them. And they're the lowest team in the conference. So I think it's a bad spot for FAU here, man. They might not take UTSA seriously. Plus, they might be in hangover mode. I guess the one concern would be that FAU's lost 6 games in a row. So they're, because when you've lost 6 in a row, you can't really afford to overlook anybody. But I think if you're going to overlook anybody, it will be in a spot like this, because it is a bad spot. They got North Texas next, although North Texas not having a good season. But still, also, a Florida team having to go play in San Antonio is not exactly the easiest trip to make either. UTSA just beat Charlotte on the road, and yes, it was a nice upset win. So that's one concern where when a team pulls off a huge upset like that, 13.5-point upset, even though Charlotte, I don't think they're really that good at all, even though they're near the top of the standings in the conference, they're not good. But yeah, a lot of times when a team pulls off an upset like that, I will definitely want to fade that team after that. And they got Tulsa on deck, so that is a concern. But the other way that I look at it is when you're UTSA and you hadn't won in the entirety of conference play, you hadn't had a win, and you finally break that losing streak, it's like that gets that monkey off your back, and you can play way looser in the next game. So I still like UTSA in this game, man, but they're coming off such a big upset point spread-wise that I don't think I could do it. But FAU's down from 13 to 12. I would agree with that move. I would take the points with Texas San Antonio in that one. But you're not going to find me coming in and playing a team that just pulled off a double-digit upset either, though. But I thought that was an interesting handicap in that game. And then on the other side of that, you got Charlotte coming off losing as a massive favorite, playing against Tulsa. And Tulsa has now lost 3 games in a row and did just lose to Wichita. I think you're going to get a focus probably out of both teams in this one. Tulsa did already beat Charlotte on the road by 12, though, so I actually think the spot sets up a little bit better for Charlotte. Tulsa coming off a game against Wichita that really was kind of a big game. Wichita climbing up the standings here, so I think I do probably lean to Charlotte in that one. Tulsa's sitting as a 13-point favorite. 75% of tickets, 99% of the cash on Tulsa. I don't know if I would really buy that much or read that much into that cash percentage there. It's an interesting game, man. Another interesting game there. The situation, I think, sets up better for Charlotte, but obviously I don't think Charlotte is that good, which is why they're a double-digit dog. Like, I don't think they're going to win the game, but they might be able to hang within that number. But Tulsa at some point has got to bounce back, man, because they're not as bad as the way they've been playing the last few games, and they've had a tough run against some difficult opponents in that conference there. Big Ten Network at 8 p.m., Maryland at Northwestern. Not exactly an epic matchup here, but you got to notice that Northwestern's an 8.5-point favorite here. Why would that be when they have the worst conference record and actually a worse overall record? Like, the public is going to look at this and think there's no way that I can lay those points with Northwestern. But you know, I've been telling you, Northwestern is not as bad as they look. They're one of Ken Palm's unluckiest teams in the entire country, and the odds makers are agreeing with that. Like, they're telling you they're significantly better than Maryland by lining them like that. So again, when the line looks like it doesn't make sense, you got to think about, well, why is that? The odds makers are giving you some information with that, and they know more. They have actual information that they're, putting a ton of money at stake on versus, the records just are what they are, and they could be completely misleading. Maryland is coming off a pretty ugly loss on the road to Rutgers. They are playing a third road game in 4 games, though, which isn't exactly that great. Having to go play in the Chicago area here for this one. Northwestern's coming off a couple of bigger games, though, where they blew a double-digit lead against Michigan, and then they played pretty competitively for an entire half against Nebraska before they kind of fell apart at Nebraska and wound up losing by 19. And yeah, you could argue Northwestern should bounce back, though, because they have lost 5 games in a row. And because the line is so misleading, I think I kind of have to lean towards laying it with Northwestern there because it's just a ridiculous-looking line. But I do think the scheduling spot might be slightly better for Maryland, but then again, it's still like a weird road trip for Maryland. So I guess that on top of the fact that Northwestern is way better than they actually look, I guess I'll lean towards Northwestern there, but no strong opinion on that. True TV at 8 p.m., we have DePaul and Seton Hall. DePaul versus Hall. DePaul is coming in off a nice win for them against Creighton. Now, that did end a 4-game losing streak, so sometimes when a team ends a losing streak, they'll be focused in the next game. They'll have new momentum going into the next game, but I don't know, because beating Creighton is still kind of a big win. Beating one of the teams that's above you in the conference standings on your home floor, and they actually beat Seton Hall once already. DePaul actually beat them. That was a win for me, I think, on the show. I think it was a good spot to fade Seton Hall, if I remember correctly. DePaul got the win by 7 at home against Seton Hall, so I'm not going to necessarily say they're going to overlook Seton Hall because Seton Hall is above them in the standings, but it might be a spot where Seton Hall is going to be able to make the adjustments and play better this time And Seton Hall is coming off beating Butler on the road. It was a game where I thought it was a spot where it made sense to play Seton Hall. Now, yes, they're coming back home here, but both teams I think are making a similar trip here from the Midwest over to the East Coast here. So the trip is kind of the same for both. Probably actually benefits Seton Hall because they're the home team here. Seton Hall in a little bit of a 2-game win streak. I think they kind of, there is maybe reason for them to have more motivation here because they do need to win to try to do something with their tournament resume here because they've fallen pretty much off the tournament radar. Although with a couple of wins, they might be able to put themselves back on it. They're an 8.5-point favorite, though, and I don't love laying points with a horrible offense like Seton Hall. They're very good on defense, bad on offense, and they play slow. The total's very low, so points will be at a premium with a total of 130. But I think if I was going to play this game, I would have to lean to laying it with Seton Hall, though. 58% of the tickets, 89% of the cash on Seton Hall. Yeah, I'm going to slightly agree with the money on that one with Seton Hall. North Dakota State and South Dakota State is the classic summit rivalry, basically, between the two teams that have made the most noise in this conference over the last couple of decades. I think the majority of the conference wins have come from these two teams. Looking at the records, you're going to think, well, North Dakota State is an easy play here. It looks way too easy to play North Dakota State because they have the way better record. Way better record, yet they're only a 1.5-point favorite here. Well, why is that? Well, the odds makers are telling you South Dakota State is not as bad as their record looks. So, and they may very well get up for this game because it's a big game, especially for them. North Dakota State already beat South Dakota State at home by 11. They're coming off a nice win in one of their other rivalry games. They beat North Dakota, who was one of the closer teams to them in the Summit League standings right now. Beat them on the road. Good win for North Dakota State there in an in-state rivalry game. Now it's a second straight road game. South Dakota State comes into this game off beating Oral Roberts to end a 3-game losing streak for South Dakota State. Oral Roberts, that's not a win that's going to make you overconfident. They're the worst team in the Summit this year. Actually, no, they're second worst to UMKC. My mistake. Kansas City is absolutely horrendous, but Oral Roberts is second worst. South Dakota State, yeah, that's a win that should just give them momentum coming into this one because they broke a losing streak with that win. So I would have to lean to South Dakota State in this game, and I think maybe they'll be able to pick off North Dakota State here and help the Tommies out a little bit as far as where they're sitting in the standings there, St. Thomas. But yeah, I'll lean to South Dakota State here. They've gone from a 1-point dog to a pick 'em, though. Or not though, that's agreeing with me. 50% of the cash on South Dakota State, but 80% of the tickets on North Dakota State. So I think the public will be on North Dakota State in that one. The money looks like it's actually coming in on South Dakota State in agreement with me. That is the way that I would lean in that particular game as well. 8:30 p.m. Fox Sports 1, Utah at West Virginia. This is an ugly game, man. West Virginia is the better team. They slow the game way down. Utah getting themselves into a couple of ugly games in a row probably, but Utah's coming off a couple of pretty big games, man. They covered against Kansas and Houston, and then they just went to Cincinnati and covered again and almost won the game outright as double-digit underdogs at Cincinnati. I was right about that lean with Utah there. Cincinnati, they just don't score, man. So laying points with Cincinnati is really not a good idea. But Utah almost pulled off a big double-digit upset there. Now they're playing a third road game in 4 games. Looks a little bit difficult for Utah, man. But do you really want to lay double digits with a slow-down team like West Virginia? Personally, I do not. West Virginia is also coming off a nice road win, an upset win at UCF. So nice win for West Virginia there. They're actually kind of playing themselves onto the tournament radar right now, believe it or not. And they got TCU on deck, which might be a bigger game for them because TCU's starting to play better and making some noise, and they're right behind West Virginia in the standings. So it's interesting, man. It's not a good spot for either team. The money looks like it is coming in on West Virginia. They're up from 9.5 to 10. 57% of tickets, 74% of the cash on West Virginia. I guess I won't really disagree with it because you just based on the way that I handicap, I kind of have to fade a team that almost pulled off a double-digit upset like Utah did. But West Virginia is also not in a very great spot, and they're not a great style of team to lay points with like this. So I'll lean that way, but I don't want to touch it. And the total is indeed low at 131.5. I wouldn't really disagree with an under in that game either, because that's just the style that West Virginia plays, and the money looks like it is coming in on the under in that one. That, and I think Utah is also very weak on offense as well. Utah is actually worse on defense, believe it or not, but they're not a great offense either. But yeah, I think it's expected to be a low-scoring game. West Virginia is outside the top 100 on offense. They're actually worse on offense than Utah is. But, the best unit on the floor there is obviously West Virginia's very strong defense. So, almost a top 25 defense, I believe. What was it again? Let me see. Yeah, 26th. All right. According to Ken Palm, that is. And, some of these other sites will have different, rankings, but they're all going to be kind of similar. The different analytics sites, like Bart Torvik does a good job as well. Evan Maya does a good job with his stuff. All right. ESPN, 9 p.m., pretty big game here. Number 23, BYU at number 4, Arizona. There is a lot going on in this situation, man. BYU coming off barely getting by Colorado. So I guess we could start with that. BYU was a big favorite in that one, a double-digit favorite, and they barely got by. And I like teams to bounce back or to play better when they barely get by as a huge favorite. You might argue BYU was looking ahead to this Arizona game. So definitely some reasons why BYU should show up in this game. Another is that BYU just lost their second-best scorer, Saunders, in that Colorado game. He got injured. I think he's going to be out for the season. So that's a huge blow to BYU. But when a team loses one of their best players like that, a lot of times they will step up their game for that first game without him. So there are a couple of indicators that BYU should put in a big effort in this one. Now, they did put in a big effort the last time at home against Arizona, but Arizona might remember that because BYU was getting blown out in that game, and they came back to within 3 late in that game. I think Arizona had that game, though, and they just kind of took their foot off the gas. So those are some indicators that you might want to look towards Arizona here because, again, when you had a home favorite like Arizona was in that one and they barely got by, that means they're going to take that game more seriously the next time. And again, if you dig into what that game looked like, Arizona was actually the way better team throughout that entire game. They just took their foot off the gas too early, and that's why BYU was able to make a massive late comeback to make the game close when it wasn't close for most of the game. So those are some indicators that you should look towards Arizona in this game. Arizona, they're coming off a couple of tough games, though, man, against Kansas and Texas Tech. And I know that game against Texas Tech, it was a hangover spot. I talk about this all the time. When a team loses their undefeated status that late into the season like Arizona did, that can definitely hang them over into the next game. I think that was part of what happened in that game. I liked Texas Tech in that one as well. Didn't really expect them to win outright, but they did. But Texas Tech's a good team, too. So I could kind of see that going both ways. Like, you could argue that they're going to be in another hangover here because that was a big game. Or you could argue, well, they should bounce back because they lost as a huge favorite. I could see both arguments, man. So it's like, what can we do with this game? I have no idea what we want to do with this game. That game was at BYU, by the way. Excuse me. The first game was at BYU, not at Arizona. My mistake. But BYU did play them close, but Arizona was actually not a huge favorite in that game. They're only a 1.5-point favorite when the game went off. And they still won, and they actually dominated the game. Although they did outshoot BYU. Well, actually, it's a really interesting stat sheet here because Arizona had more rebounds in the game, but somehow BYU had 19 more field goal attempts. I don't even know how that happened. I guess it was just Arizona was constantly going to the free throw line. And a lot of times I don't like that. When a team went to the free throw line a lot, that's actually an indicator that you don't want to be on that team the next time because they were getting the benefit of the free throws. But then again, it could be kind of there could be kind of a trend there as well. Like it could just be that Arizona just has a tendency to get fouled if they're the more dominant team in the paint, which I think they are in this matchup against BYU. So there's kind of a lot to this handicap, and it's a lot in both directions where I don't want to do anything with this game. But now that Saunders is out and whatever, and, we see what these teams have done since then, Arizona's now laying 12.5 points, which does seem pretty high, given that they were 1.5 when the game went off on the road. I know you got to factor in the Saunders injury and whatever, but to me, this line does seem a bit too high at this point. And given that I think BYU is in the slightly better situational spot, I think, plus, with the injured player spot potential here, I would probably take the points with BYU. 76% of tickets, 68% of the cash on Arizona. And because I thought Arizona was a big favorite at home in the prior game, but that's not the case. They were on the road, so my mistake with that. So that part of the handicap gets thrown out a little bit, where Arizona will take them more seriously. I'm not sure that they totally will. And some elements of that box score actually made Arizona's big lead in the game look misleading. So, but yeah, 76% of tickets, 68% of the cash on Arizona. I guess I would take BYU plus the points there, but again, it's not a game that I really want anything to do with. We have so many TV games late, man. This is insane. I got to talk about most of these remaining games. Peacock NBC Network at 9 p.m. We have, what is this? Number 8 Kansas at Oklahoma State. The public's going to have a tendency to play Kansas here. We know Kansas has been hot, right? In the recent games. They did just lose to Iowa State, though, but I think that might hang them over, man, because Kansas had a long win streak snap. They'd won 8 games in a row. And I talk about when a team loses a long win streak in a big game where they get up emotionally for it, a lot of times, they'll fall flat in a game after that. And that might be the case here, even though I did give out Iowa State as a play on Saturday in that one because Kansas was just coming off that massive win against Arizona. So I thought they were in a letdown against Iowa State, even though it was also a game that simultaneously you kind of get up for in a way, which is, I don't know, it sounds a little bit weird to say, but, but yeah, I did think it was a letdown spot. But in a case like this, I don't really think Kansas immediately bounces back. And I think Oklahoma State will consider this to be a big game, and they're basically fighting for their tournament lives, and you're going to be giving them points at home. They're going to be an underdog here at home. Oklahoma State, though, that was a big game in their last game. They fell short against TCU, who's another bubble team, and that game went into overtime. So it was a big effort for Oklahoma State there, so I worry about that, the fact that Oklahoma State's coming off a big effort game. But I think that I would have to lean towards Oklahoma State in this game. Based on Kansas losing the win streak or whatever, you've lost a little bit of value on this. You could have gotten 7.5, but it's down to 6.5 now. 85% of the tickets and 69% of the cash on Kansas, who look like they are the public side there. I'll lean to Oklahoma State in that one, but not a strong enough opinion to make it a play or anything like that. Kansas has got Cincinnati on deck. That's not really a big deal, but that's my opinion on that game. ACC Network, 9 p.m., number 14, Virginia at Georgia Tech. Virginia coming off a big game, man, against Ohio State, even though I know Ohio State almost pulled off the upset there. That was a neutral site game, and Virginia was only a 5.5-point favorite. So I think they might consider that to be more of kind of a big game. It was a spotlight game in Nashville. Now they're playing an ugly Georgia Tech team before Virginia has huge games on deck against Miami, NC State, Duke. All 3 of those teams are going to be tournament teams, most likely. So this is a spot where Virginia might overlook Georgia Tech, man. It does look pretty sandwichy here. And you're going to be laying points with Virginia on the road with a slow-paced Virginia team, which is not something I really would enjoy doing. Georgia Tech has lost a bunch of games in a row. 7 games in a row, I think is what this is. Most recently going to Notre Dame, but now they're back at home. And the last time they were back at home, they lost badly to Wake Forest by double digits. So, I like teams to bounce back, at least effort-wise, on their home floor when they're back home and they lost their last road game when it was, not like a close loss against a great team or anything like that. And they also lost last time they were at home. I think you're going to get focus out of Georgia Tech in a spot like that, so I would lean to Georgia Tech in this one. They're a big underdog here. It's 13.5, low total in the 140s. 75% of the tickets are on Virginia, 63% of the cash on Georgia Tech. I like Georgia Tech in that one. That's what I would do if I was going to play it. I would take the points with Georgia Tech in that one. And again, Virginia, a slow-paced team laying double digits on the road. Doesn't look like a good idea to me. And Virginia, we've seen them have some struggles on the road as well. And, I don't think they could really easily win by margin like this in road conference games, even if it is against one of the bottom dwellers in the conference. TNT, 9 p.m., number 17, St. John's at Marquette. St. John's is coming off that win over Providence, and, man, that was kind of a big win for St. John's, man. Because there's the whole Bryce Hopkins thing. He plays for St. John's now. He used to play for Providence. Providence was the only team that had beaten St. John's this year, at St. John's, no less. The only team in conference play, I should say. So that was a big revenge win for St. John's, and that game got really physical. Like I said, 7 players got ejected in the game. Some of the fans got thrown out at Providence. That was a massive win for St. John's, believe it or not. And now they're coming off of that, and they're playing a Marquette team that they already beat easily, 92-68 at home. They might look right past Marquette, man. And they got Creighton, UConn, and Villanova all on deck, which are all bigger games, even though they did already beat Creighton and Villanova and UConn. But still, those are still better teams in the conference. So I think this is a bad spot for St. John's here, where they just might not take Marquette seriously. St. John's having to go play in Milwaukee for this game, which is kind of an odd spot to be in. Marquette's coming off kind of an ugly loss at Xavier, but that was a sandwich spot for Marquette. They'd come off a close loss to Villanova on the road the game before that, where they played well against one of the top teams in the conference, and they had St. John's on deck. So that was a sandwich spot. It's just, I think I couldn't get there with Marquette because I think Xavier was coming up playing St. John's or something like that. So both teams were in horrendous spots in that one, if I remember correctly. But it was a bad spot for Marquette. I think they should come with a better effort here. I would have to lean to Marquette in this game. You know you're going to get them as a home underdog here. St. John's up from 9 to 9.5 here. 74% of the tickets are on them. 57% of the cash on Marquette. I agree with the market in that one, where the cash is there. I would take the points with Marquette in that one. Probably one of my stronger opinions, by the way, in that game. I don't know. Besides my 2 plays that I gave out, I don't know what other games I would consider to be the strong opinions here. That's probably one of them, though. Yeah, I don't know. I don't really see any other ones that are like, oh yeah. I don't know. Probably if I was going to add another one to my card, this one might be next, to be honest. Marquette. Number 19, Vandy at Missouri on the SEC Network. Vandy, I don't think they're in a great spot. They're coming off a couple of nice wins on the road at Auburn as an underdog, believe it or not. And then they beat Texas A&M at home. Vandy was a pretty big favorite in that game, but still maybe somewhat satisfying to beat a Texas A&M team that's been playing pretty well. Now they're going on the road, kind of an unfamiliar venue, going to Missouri. And on deck, they have their huge game against Tennessee, who I think they always consider to be their bigger brother in the state of Tennessee. And that'll be the first time they're playing them this year. So could definitely be a look ahead to Tennessee here, man. So Vandy could get caught in this game against Missouri. And Missouri is a home underdog here, and they're fighting for tournament positioning as they are a bubble team right now, coming off kind of an ugly loss to Texas. Yes, that did end a 3-game win streak for them, excuse me. So sometimes that will hang you over, but I think they're going to show up for a home game against Vandy, man, coming off an ugly loss, which was one of my wins on Saturday. I gave out Texas in that game. I liked the spot. I thought Vandy, I thought Missouri just had it surrounded by bigger games, including this one. I would take the points with Missouri in this one if I was going to play it. Vandy dropped from 5 to 3.5, but we do see the money coming in on Vandy, but I don't really agree with it. 53% of tickets, 59% of the cash on Vandy. I do not really agree with that cash percentage there. I would lean towards taking it with Missouri, even though you've lost a little bit of line value on that. ESPNU has what's probably the best Missouri Valley game of the day. Murray State at Illinois State. These teams I think they're 2 of the top 3 teams in the conference. I don't think Bradley's quite there, although I know I forgot to mention Bradley completely in my bracketology, so maybe they're being overlooked, at least by me. Bradley is there near the top of the standings, but power ratings-wise, I think you got Murray State, Illinois. You got Belmont, of course, at the top. Then I think actually Illinois State, then Murray State, then probably, I don't know, Bradley, UIC, Northern Iowa are all kind of there as well. But this is a big game, is what I'm trying to say. Murray State's coming off that big TV game against Belmont, where it was a tale of two halves, where Murray State was absolutely dominating the game early, and then Belmont completely swung the game and dominated the later parts of the game. Absolutely wild to see a swing like that, where Murray State was winning the game by over 20 points in the game. They wound up almost losing by 20. Just insane to see a swing like that. So I don't know if they respond well to that or if they don't. Because it was a big get-up TV game where they thought they had Belmont on the ropes, and then to have a swing like that happen, I don't know, man. But then again, Murray State lost at home already to Illinois State, so they might get up for Illinois State for that reason. But I think Illinois State will get up for this game as well. Illinois State's coming off a horrible loss to Illinois Chicago. Horrible based on how badly they lost, 83-56. So I think the spot, based on what just happened, I think does set up better for Illinois State in this one. And I think the public's going to have a tendency to want to grab Murray State here because, they're a slight underdog here. And yes, the odds makers are actually telling you Murray State's the slightly better team now. That hasn't been the case throughout the season when I've been looking at KenPom's numbers. I guess now it is, but the public's going to want to grab Murray State, man, to bounce back. Oh, they lost to Belmont. That's okay, that type of thing. It looks way too easy to play Murray State. So based on what just happened in their previous game, I think I would actually look towards Illinois State. But they actually dropped from 4. Actually, you know what? I think I wasn't wrong about the power ratings. I think there must be an injury on the Illinois State side, dropping them from 4.5 to 1 here, which might mean you might actually get some value on Illinois State now. Where you could basically just play them on the money line now at a cheap price. 80% of the tickets, 96% of the cash on Murray State. I don't pay enough attention to the personnel, but I think that does mean there's probably some injury on the Illinois State side there. So if that's the case, you might get additional value on their side, and that's probably the way I would lean in that one. KenPom's got Illinois State 99th. Where does he have Murray? Yeah, he has Murray State 112th. So like I said, he does have Illinois State higher than them and the way less lucky team. So that's something to consider here as well. And Illinois State is the way better defense too. So Illinois State's probably going to try to slow the game down a bit. They play a bit slower, at least way slower than Murray State does. Murray State's one of those teams that's all offense, no defense. They play fast. And they're lucky, according to KenPom. And those are the types of teams I like to fade more often than not. So a lot of things do line up for me looking towards Illinois State in that one from like an analytics perspective. It'll be an interesting game to watch, man. But for me, I would lean to Illinois State slightly. CBS Sports, 9 p.m., St. Mary's at Seattle. St. Mary's coming up beating Pacific on the road. Nice win. Pacific has been doing fairly well in this conference this year. Seattle's been okay, but there is a possibility that St. Mary's doesn't take them that seriously. They beat them by 17 already at St. Mary's. It's a second straight road game, having to go up to an unfamiliar venue because Seattle's new to this conference. Even though, of course, the teams in this conference are used to playing in the state of Washington, but still will be an unfamiliar venue. Seattle bounced back from a couple of losses with a win over Oregon State, so they have a little bit of momentum coming into this game. I would probably take the points with Seattle if I was going to play this one. St. Mary's, slow-paced team. Seattle plays mostly defense, so it's expected to be an ugly game, total in the 130s. Makes sense to look towards taking the points at home for that reason, too. 50% of tickets on St. Mary's, 62% of the cash on Seattle. St. Mary's up to a 10.5-point favorite. Yeah, money is agreeing with me on Seattle. That is the way I would lean in that one. ESPN 2 at 9 p.m., Auburn at Mississippi State. Auburn is coming off a loss to Arkansas. They've lost 4 games in a row. You got to think Auburn, they got to do something to bounce back here, man. Arkansas got the revenge win against them. Auburn is starting to fall, into a position where they might not make the tournament. So they got to do something here, man. They're a bubble team. They got to show up and beat an inferior team like Mississippi State. Although it's going to look probably too easy to lay the points with Auburn, maybe. But Mississippi State is coming off a very satisfying road revenge rivalry win, the Triple R, RRR. The Indian action movie, which I still haven't watched because I don't have 3.5 hours. No, I probably do, actually. I should watch it at some point. But anyway, Mississippi State, that was a big win for them, man. So I think Auburn is probably in the better position to get this game. And they're the better team, of course. But Mississippi State, that was a big win for them. You could argue it ended a losing streak for them, so they should bounce back from that. But it was a game where, they lost at home to their rival Ole Miss already. Big road revenge win for them. So I would actually probably lean Auburn here, but they're up from 3.5 to 5, and public slightly on them, 57% of tickets, but 90% of the cash on Mississippi State. I don't really agree with that one, though, in that one. The cash percentage, on Mississippi State for whatever reason. I don't know about that one, man. All right, Big Ten Network at 10 p.m. as we start getting into the degenerate hours here where people try to make their money back. Number 10, Illinois at USC. And I talk about when these more Eastern teams go out west for a late Pacific Coast game. A lot of times it's bad news because it's bad for their biological clocks. They have to shift time zones like this. They haven't done that. I don't know if Illinois has played outside. I don't know if they've played in the Pacific time zone this year. They have not in conference play yet, so it should be pretty difficult for them. They're coming off a fairly satisfying 20-point win over Indiana, where I thought Indiana would play better in that game than they did. USC, they're a bubble team right now, too, so USC needs to show up with some effort in some of these games, man, because they might miss the tournament, too. They're traveling across time zones, too, because they're coming back from playing Penn State and Ohio State. They did just lose a 3-game win streak in a big battle against Ohio State, though, so the spot's not great for USC coming off of that. They were an underdog at Ohio State, and they played pretty well. I think they covered, actually, as 7.5-point dogs in that one. So the spot's not exactly great for USC either here. I'm staying off the game. The money is saying USC pretty strongly. Illinois, 9-point favorite here. 59% of tickets on Illinois. 81% of the cash on USC. I guess I'll agree with that one, but, not a strong opinion for me on that one at all. Fox Sports 1 has a pretty interesting one in the Mountain West with Boise State at Utah State. Boise State probably not quite as bad as their record looks. Utah State is pretty legit, and they're atop the Mountain West, although at this point, I think they're going to make the tournament even if they don't win the Mountain West. Boise is coming off a pretty ugly loss where I gave out a winner on that one on UNLV, plus the points. It went into overtime, but Boise lost as a double-digit favorite, man. And I think they were looking ahead. Like I said, that was my handicap. They had a big road win the game before, upset road win at New Mexico, who's one of the top teams in the conference, and they had Utah State on deck. So even though it was a revenge game for them against UNLV, I thought the sandwich spot counteracted that. But part of that handicap was they'll be looking ahead to this game against Utah State, man. And they're coming off losing as a double-digit home favorite. So those are positives for Boise coming into this game. And when Boise played at home against Utah State, they lost 93-68. So that was a horrible home loss for Boise. So I think this is a pretty big revenge spot. And Utah State might not take them seriously because Utah State already blew them out at Boise. Utah State just had a weird out-of-conference game where they beat Memphis. Not a huge deal, but kind of a weird game, a televised game. Maybe a satisfying win there. They got Nevada and then San Diego State and Grand Canyon all on deck. Grand Canyon will be a revenge game for Utah State, and San Diego State will be a huge game because those two teams are atop the conference, and Nevada is actually above Boise in the standings as well. So all three of those games they might consider to be bigger than this one. So many things line up for Boise in this one, and that's the way I will lean. I'll lean towards taking the points with Boise here. Utah State is a 10-point favorite here. So Oddsmaker's telling you they're actually considerably better than Boise at this point. But we might have gotten too far, man. We might have over-adjusted these lines a little bit too much because I'm sure that Boise was a favorite the first time these teams played. So I think there might be a little bit of an over-adjustment here based on what these teams have done since then. And you got to adjust a little bit, but actually Utah State was a 1.5-point favorite in that one at Boise. But even so, 10 seems a little bit crazy. I think the line should probably be about 8.5. 67% of tickets, 84% of the cash on Boise. I'm losing my voice here completely, but I would agree with taking the points with Boise there. 2 games left, ESPN 2. 11 p.m., degenerate hours. Gonzaga, number 11 in the country, at San Francisco. Gonzaga's coming off a very nice win at Santa Clara, and they retook first place in the West Coast Conference because, Santa Clara's having a great season, man. It would be cool to see them make the tournament. I think they actually kind of deserve it. I think Santa Clara is actually a legit team this year. So big win for Gonzaga on the road at Santa Clara, man. And Santa Clara had, Santa Clara is still giving them a scare in the conference as far as the standings are concerned. Big win to retake first place. Now they're playing San Francisco, who's really not having a great season. Pacific on deck. Pacific is actually ahead of San Francisco in the standings. But the one thing that might keep Gonzaga still focused here is that they almost lost at home to San Francisco. Gonzaga were 15.5-point favorites in this game, and they only won by 2. So when a team, like I said with Miami, Ohio last night, when in the first meeting a team had a big scare like that, like Gonzaga did, I think Gonzaga was the way better team in the game, too. They were winning this game by double digits throughout the second half. And again, I think they just took their foot off the gas too early and then almost lost the game because of that. But when you didn't play that well down the stretch, you took a scare like that. Plus, Gonzaga had St. Mary's on deck, man, so you could see what they were doing. They were looking ahead to a big game against St. Mary's. So I think you could explain what happened in that game, and because of that, I think they might actually take San Francisco more seriously. So that would be the worry I would have with leaning towards San Francisco here. San Francisco just broke a 3-game losing streak with a win against San Diego. It's not a very good team. So, yeah, I do think the spot is still better for San Francisco here, but my worry is that Gonzaga might still focus there. I think Gonzaga probably gets out of there with the win. Will they cover is a different story, though. 64% of tickets on Gonzaga, 75% of the cash on San Francisco. I'll agree with taking the points with San Francisco here. They're down from 14.5 to 14, Gonzaga is. And that is a pretty high number considering that they closed 15.5 at home. They probably shouldn't quite be laying the same number on the road. So I do think from a value perspective, I think the line is a little bit high as well. So I'll lean to San Francisco, but I think Gonzaga probably focuses enough, takes them seriously enough to at least win that game. But covering on the road like that is a different story, man, with a number that I think is skewed too high. And then Colorado State at UNLV is the last game. The other degenerate. This is the real degenerate special because this is an ugly game between two of the lesser Mountain West teams this year. Not the least, because we're not talking about San Jose State and Air Force here, but these are two, let's call them mediocre teams in the Mountain West. Colorado State coming off a nice win over Wyoming. They caught Wyoming in a good scheduling spot to catch them, though. It was a bad spot for Wyoming. I mentioned that I did like Colorado State in that one. Now they're playing UNLV, who they already beat at home by 8. They got a huge game on deck against San Diego State, so I don't love Colorado State here in the spot. Having to go to Vegas, although at least in the Mountain West, you're used to playing in Vegas, so I don't think you're going to fall into the typical Vegas distractions when you're a Mountain West team. You play in Vegas every year. The tournament is there every year, whatever, the conference tournament. But UNLV is, of course, coming off a monster win themselves, that huge upset at Boise, a double-digit upset, so they're not in a good spot either. So both teams are in bad spots here. The money is saying Colorado State here for what it's worth. UNLV is up from a 1-point favorite to a 2-point favorite. 75% of tickets, only 56% of the cash on them. And, I guess I'll agree just because Colorado State's most recent win was a win as a favorite. So UNLV is coming off the much bigger effort in a huge road upset. So I guess I'll agree slightly with taking the points of Colorado State, but I really do worry about that look ahead to San Diego State, and that's going to do it, man. Hour and a half, not horrible here at least. Don't know why StreamYard's doing all that. StreamYard fucking up the layout again there. Probably because I left and I did the intermission there, but that's going to do it, man. Thanks for hanging out, guys. My plays today one more time. Butler plus the points, you can click. StreamYard lets you click to... Like, if you click on the banner now, I don't know if people are familiar with StreamYard. If you click on the banner now, it changes the timer now. That's interesting. Kind of annoying because you have to click it in the right spot to show it. But, yes, we're on Butler plus 6 and East Carolina plus 7.5. Those are my 2 plays. If I was going to add another one, it would probably be Marquette plus the points. That's going to do it for me today, man. Learn to Toad on Twitter. So you can subscribe to me there if you want to throw me some support. Learn to Toad on Instagram to get the short form content here. Like and subscribe to the channel here, man. We're really doing poorly here with these live viewers here the last couple of shows, man. I'm not happy about it. We're down to 12 live viewers here. People can't sit through like an hour and a half long show, but, you know, you got to get autistic. You got to get about gambling. I think I give out probably more gambling information than any other show on the internet, man. So, you know, we got to get the viewership up. Like, subscribe, tell everybody about it. You know, put good replies, whatever. Like, subscribe, etc. We're on audio as well. That helps out as well. Listen on audio. Give me good reviews on audio, Apple, Spotify. Like and subscribe to my other channel, the Uke channel, Covered in Uke. I got no voice to do anything right now over there, but go do that too. Covered in Uke. And then there is Patreon feed, patreon.com/learntotode. Or if you just want to support what I do, my gambling habit, no, but, you know, I need money to live as well. So, but it also, you know, helps me. You know, I have to put money into making the content too, so there is that too. But yes, patreon.com/learntotode. You get some bonus Uke stuff there. And then Losercast, you can check that out. We had a fun episode last night with, I forgot we had a guest star. We had Ellie Stockholm. I keep calling her Stockton. It's Stockholm. I made enough Stockholm Syndrome jokes. It was the longest episode of the show ever. We vibed with her, man. It was a fun show. You can go check that out. Losercast last night. She is an OnlyFans chick, among other things, but yeah, she's cool. She definitely was down with our sense of humor and whatever. So yeah, I thought it was a really fun show. Go check that out. That's gonna do it, man. I'll be back tomorrow morning. NBA returns tomorrow, and it'll be the Thursday mid-major madness is what we call the Thursday college basketball slate, because usually I think there are few or no big conference games, but I call it the junk college basketball because the lower conferences are in play. So we have all that to talk about. That's going to do it for now. Thanks, guys. Peace.